podcasting will be a thrill. Grandpa and chill, grandson and friends. Grandpa and chill in full effect. We talk about it all, yeah, put it all on the set with that pet craze too. We chillin' with Rosie, come through, stay tuned, yeah, listen closely. Cause this the millennials and the silent generation coming together, discussion in rotation. This is Grandpa and Chill.
Hi, I'm Brandon Fox.
Hello, and I'm Phines Jackson.
You're listening to another episode of Grandpa and Chill. We're here with two amazing guests and our producer, amazing as always, Sierra. Please welcome Erik and Gail. How are you guys doing today?
Fantastic. We're very glad to be here.
Yeah. If you could each just tell our audience a little bit about yourselves, why you're here, what you do, all that kind of stuff.
You bet. Well, I'll start off. My name is Erik Bean, and I wrote a book called Bias is All Around You, a handbook for inspecting social media news stories. It came out last summer, and it's basically a book to help people understand any biases in any information that comes their way. Gail?
I started working with Erik on a previous book, and he came to me with this idea of bias, and I was all for it. And yeah, I like art is not my profession, but I like to dabble in lots of different things, and especially just working with paper, that tends to be where I like to gravitate to. So he asked me to do the illustrations in this book, and I had a lot of fun doing it and just working through the process. It was a good context all around.
The book is
the way around.
highly illustrated, and I think anybody on the Grandpa and Chill audience will enjoy these illustrations immensely to tell the story as well as the how-tos of assessing any piece of information, and Gail is such an asset. And I also want to thank Sherry Wexler, our editor, who couldn't be here tonight.
Yeah. You're talking about the process. How long did it take from conception to publishing? At what point did you realize that sort of having an illustration-heavy book would be an asset?
Well, that's a great question. So really, the idea of the book, Gail's right. Originally in 2019, we published the book Ethan's Healthy Mind Express, a children's first mental health primer. And it was a book that was very important because children need a support system today, especially with the internet, especially with understanding, a lot of social situations and children that have a lot of mental challenges like autism. So Gail came aboard, created this amazing train. All of her illustrations are hand cut out of paper that she sources all over the world. And I'm not going to steal the show. I'm going to let Gail tell you about that process. But this was a book that I didn't think that I was going to write. But after the January 6th insurrection and after the 2020 U.S. presidential election, the misinformation associated with the pandemic, misinformation associated with a lot of civil unrest across the country, I knew that we needed to give people a tool, a 57-page tool with beautiful illustrations that would allow them to understand how to assess information so that they don't share false narratives in their social networks, which has become a huge problem these days. And so the whole, it took about 6 months from the January 6th insurrection, and then we needed to bring some other people on board, like we got the director of the School of Journalism at Michigan State University to write the foreword. So we want to thank Dr. Voss because he was also a great asset. So it took about 6 months, and you guys will love this. We decided to publish it on July 4th, and we like to think of it as freedom from misinformation.
That's
Yeah. I guess just to start off in it, just to go in like, what is bias? what is a bias, and really specifically, what is it to you, as well?
Great question. Yeah. So, of course, our biases start from the moment that we're born. We're born into a family with bias. We're born into our school, our religion, the community that we live in, the situations that we find ourselves in, and then, of course, we have the media that affects us as well. So, our biases are shaped from a variety of different sources. When you ask what my bias is, how my biases are shaped, a lot of it has to do with our inner circle, who we trust in our circle to give us information, because we don't have time to vet all pieces of information. We have to do a little bit of trusting, but if our inner circle is wrong, we need to once in a while tell them, hey guys, you didn't get this one right. And there's some new information out there I want you to take a look at. So there's a survey that we ask, any of our readers to take at the beginning. It's not in the book, but it's on our website, biashandbook.com/tools. And all you have to do is go to tinyurl.com/bias to you. And you can take a 7-question survey, and this survey will it should open up everybody's eyes to the biases that affect them, because our personal biases certainly affect how we interact with information. But a lot of people have so much pride, they don't want to admit that they need help investigating information. And so our book provides them that help to show them. And so really, a lot of it has to do with your inner circle. And but I'll let Gail take a hit at this too. As far as biases, because bias also works itself out, with just in all other forms of life too, with how we look, what our religion is, things like that.
Yeah. Well, when you're as you were speaking, I was thinking about my day job, which I was a teacher, and now I'm a full-time tutor, and I actually prefer that better because I can work with students one-on-one, and I really get to know them and see how they think and work with their skill assets. And so it's interesting because it's not something that I think of directly every time that I'm working with a student, but it does catch my attention sometimes, where I realize how heavily they're influenced by people. And sometimes that's not, sometimes the adults in their lives or, their peers, but I'll give them a break because they're younger, but the adults in their lives are influencing so many of their thoughts. And that's a good thing. That can be definitely a good thing. You want to instill values in children and young adults. But I feel like you need to draw the line when you are telling your child who to vote for, or giving them these direct actions to take, rather than hopefully just giving them all the skills to live in the world, and then they need to make their own decisions. And so I think bias really plays into all of that. And when I work with students, I definitely try to kind of keep my own personal interjections out of our conversations. I try to not let them know exactly how I feel about a lot of things, just because I want them to become their own people. And so I think that bias can so easily creep into all aspects of our life without even thinking about it. So it's just something that I think it's
do you think that
aware
these
of.
kids are being biased or affected by media differently than, say, when you were growing up? And if so, like, what does that change look like?
Probably, I would have to assume that it would, just because I feel like they're bombarded by so much information and so many, just so much information coming at them at all times, and I don't know. I find it hard to, to think about this. I think, of course, I'm biased, by how grew up. And I think, my parents were pretty good about letting me make my own decisions. My dad, especially, was very good at, just like having me come up with my own conclusions. And I think I'm a nonconformist anyways, naturally. So anything that I see, I just naturally want to go the other direction. But I'm thinking back to my childhood, and I just don't think that I had that influence. I don't think I was supposed to be influenced by the media as much as people think that they're supposed to be influenced by it now.
And let me
maybe.
also add,
Or
Gail, that, and I think it has to do with the level of confidence as people grow up, in their teens and things, because, today these social media, they're powerful tools. They're elixirs. They're eye candy. I've, had my experience with TikTok. I've got a page out there. When you can swipe through and just scroll through all sorts of different events, happy events, sad events, when you can scroll through, misinformation, information that's controlled by algorithms, it's a lot. It's a lot to consume. And for young people, they're magnetized by it all. They're, when they hear the music that they like, it's like eating a good ice cream cone. It's like I love the music and I'm influenced by the person. So they might tend to believe anything that the social media influencer says. But the book talks about algorithms. The book, and Gail so beautifully was able to piggyback off of that. For example, the algorithms that take information out of your smartphone and, like a tornado, and the algorithms that are actually made of ones and zeros, right? Because the entire language of a computer is ones and zeros. And Gail was able, we have a chapter about mental health and bias, because it can affect your mental health. If you share a piece of information that is a false narrative, you might have an unsettling feeling, and we call that cognitive dissonance. And but anyways, Gail came up with this amazing illustration that has lots of ones and zeros, and I can tell the audience it might actually spell something if you're a computer person, but you'll have to take a look at the book. The bottom line is that, yeah, people are, you've heard of the term sheeple. People can be very easily influenced, especially at a younger age, psychologically, because they want to be part of the in crowd. But, when I was growing up, my parents used to tell me, if 10 people jump off the Brooklyn Bridge, would you jump off the Brooklyn Bridge? Right? So, I think, no, I won't jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. I know better. No, times have changed dramatically. We're all used to our smartphones. Back in the days, if I wanted to know what was in the news, I had to get in my car and go and buy a newspaper, or if I, subscribed to one. But there were only maybe 2 or 3 papers in town. Now we have hundreds of sources to get information from, but many of us still tend to go to the lowest common denominator and look at the information that's already served up on our smartphones. So we have to kind of break that habit a little bit and be a little bit more choosy. Just a little bit more choosy.
Yeah. Sorry. Phines and I are usually in 2 different places, and I'm sure it'll be very trippy to the viewers that were on the same screen. But I'm also seeing the
my notes.
The secret. Yeah. We've been doing this for a long time, and I've never
breaking down.
Yeah, I love. Yeah.
No worries.
Oh, you want to hear some of this?
Yes,
some of the stuff I'm writing down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what something that makes me really. I was talking to a friend about this recently, but we were talking about when we were younger, watching, and this is still kind of crazy, but like we were interested in animals. We only had Animal Planet. We would watch Animal Planet, and then we had to watch whatever was on Animal Planet, right? Like we were there for dogs maybe, but then we had to watch stuff about sharks, and we learned about different things. But now you can go to YouTube and spend all day on a dinosaur and just keep going, and then keep going on it. And I wonder how I just wonder how that affects
Well, that
biases a little bit. Quite,
yeah, no.
yeah.
So that's it. And and when you think about TikTok, I mean, imagine if they took YouTube and suddenly turned it into a TikTok where you could just scroll through the videos so fast, right? You could scroll through them so fast, but I think it
They did. They,
definitely
they have YouTube Shorts now.
they have then they've caught on. Then they know.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's just that we have to work with our younger people because those images can be ingrained in their head. It's just like when you look at the computer for so long. We all go to sleep and we've got little blue bubbles rolling in our eyes. But the images and psychologically what it's doing, I think that the research is just really getting underway right now. In a lot of different schools that are working on this right now, and of course, the best advice is moderation, right? Moderation. But the truth is that most of these platforms do very little filtering, and it's sort of like when you're growing up and people say uh, you know uh, don't go there. Well, naturally you want to go there because you want to see what you're missing. So but um, that's why there are some people that they monitor the internet usage in their homes very carefully, um, because they would rather have their children see those things in their home than see those things out in the street. But it's very difficult for parents these days to parent, children, and to police all of that because there are computers everywhere and there are smartphones everywhere. So, that's part of the problem. But here's what I think the audience should really understand. Is that no matter what information you're looking at, whether it's in a newspaper, a magazine, a television show, a YouTube video, all information can be segmented into 7 sources of all potential bias. 7 sources of bias. And, these categories in of themselves are very important to know because they all tend to have their own biases. So there's not in any particular order, but information can be divided into academic, hidden agenda groups because we don't really know. We have an idea that they might not be a healthy group, but they certainly don't have a customer service department to help people, and I'm thinking like QAnon, right? For-profits, non-profits, watchdog groups, which are like nonprofits, but they have a little bit more of an interesting job where they're just kind of making sure everybody's doing their job correctly, government and individuals like you and I. So these 7 sources of biases, any information that you get, you first have to say to yourself, wait a minute, if this is a for-profit, their number one goal is to make money. Is the information they're providing me, are there any conflicts of interest? What's going on? Then you might have the academic group. The academic people in the academy have to publish or perish. You might have heard of that expression, publish or perish, because professors need to get tenure, and they can't get tenure unless they publish or they will in fact perish. So we have to scrutinize all of their work too. One week a study comes out and says oatmeal is good for you. The next week it says, well, if you eat too much oatmeal, you could gain weight. But either way, not one single study may necessarily be the last word on that issue. So, but the book has a bias assessment form at the end, 1 page, where you can look at information and determine if it contains conflicts of interest, fallacies, hasty generalizations. That's one of the biggest fallacies that we're all guilty of too. But all of these things, our own personal biases and the biases swirling around us, affect our ability to understand information because we're being bombarded. We're being bombarded. Lots of information out there. And but just to go along with your inner circle sometimes, but maybe sometimes not, right? Sometimes you have to go it alone. If you're investing in something, if you're going to follow somebody, you better scrutinize them. So the book has a technique, and it's called KLEMP, KLEMP. Let me know if I'm going too fast. So it's based on the Greek rhetorical styles of Kyros, which is when the piece was published. Logos, does it contain facts or attribution? Does it say according to? Ethos, which is the background of the author. Mythos is the subject matter expertise of the author. And pathos is how much emotion the piece contains. So if you just look at a piece for Kyros, Logos, and Pathos, you don't have to do any other research on the internet, and you can ascertain the overall level of bias that that piece contains. Because if it doesn't have any attribution, if it doesn't say according to, then it's an editorial. And there's nothing wrong with editorials, but would you bank on just an editorial for your next move? Or should the editorial say according to or give you some good statistics? I'd rather have the editorial that has the statistics that are baked in. Oops, it looks like we just lost Grandpa and Chill. I think they're chilling right now because the internet went down a little bit.
No, I'm here.
No, yeah, I'm listening.
You're there. Okay.
The thing that I'm the thing that I'm thinking about really deeply as you're going through these are one, we were just talking because you guys are coming on about sort of capitalistic society and for profit, right? Every news article makes their money by people clicking on it, and the inflammatory articles get clicked on more. It's just like human nature, which we're not circumventing, and it's a hard thing to get around. The other thing that I was thinking about was not just the articles themselves, but for example, most people don't get the physical newspaper these days, and that's arranged by the editor, but we're getting it from Google News, Facebook, Reddit, etc., etc., etc. These companies, or even if you're just in a browser and you just Google, Bing, whatever it is, you type in the specific article or whatever you're looking for, you mentioned algorithms. They're arranging it for you in a way that targets you specifically to click on something to get ad dollars. It seems like we're so steeped in this. It's really
right.
hard.
You're right. It's become a cesspool. It's become a cesspool. And but we all need to be smarter than the cesspool in order to survive. So the book talks about outliers. Outliers are other areas of information where you can get at the truth. So, for example, if you want to know what went on at the local city, township, or village planning commission or board meeting, call them up and have them send you email, fax, get the meeting minutes to see who said what and under what pretexts, because you're not going to hear about that in the local news. There's not time to tell you that depth, and there's not much money in it, quite frankly. So local journalism has taken the biggest hit, community journalism. And our laws, everything starts at the community level, typically. Not everything, but typically that's where laws are created. But since there's no more community journalism, who's policing those meetings? You have to have a quorum in order to take a vote at a public meeting. If nobody's there, if people who are on the board, they don't all show up and they say, oh, we're just going to take the vote anyways. Well, that wasn't a legal vote. So there's a book that came out in the 1880s that you can buy on Amazon today called Robert's Rules of Order. And that's how all of our planning commissions, boards, civic meetings are run. They're run by Robert's Rules of Order. I think you can even get one on Amazon for a slightly extra cost, and you can get a gavel with it and be your own, meeting, judge. Yeah, you can buy the gavel edition. But the bottom line is, it was such an efficient way to run meetings. What's on the table, what's off the table. Are we going to place a vote now? But when I began in journalism in 1992, I was a reporter for the Grand Rapids Press, and I used to cover the far-reaching suburbs. And I was there when they didn't have a quorum. And I was there when an attorney might have come into a meeting and said, you know what, you can't let this thing take place because you didn't have a fair vote. But if I wasn't there, I was like the only other person at the meeting, for some of these things that go on.
Right.
Obviously some of the bigger cities, they record things, and that's good. But we're still not hearing it that fast because there's not a lot of money in it. And, but there are people out there that are trying to bring back local journalism. But you're right. That's a good point that you mentioned. That there, what we so the outliers, we have to go directly to the horse's mouth these days, which requires a little bit of work. But if we work on our bodies, if we work on making our home beautiful, and that takes time, or we work on, taking a shower every day, I think that we should spend a little bit more time digging for the right information, right? And so Gail came up with this amazing illustration. Remember that childhood game that you would whisper something in somebody's ear, right? And by the time it came full circle, it was a completely different message. So wait till you see Gail's amazing paper illustration that illustrates that point. And go ahead, Gail.
Well, I was thinking about just everything as we're talking, and what Phineas said, and then Brandon, and what you're saying is basically, like, we're always talking about like the good old days, but if we could just kind of take a step back, and I feel like if you are able to basically communicate with as many people as you can, instead of being like Phineas said, now you can get hyper focused on like the animals, your example of the animals, where you can just get hyper focused on one thing because you think that you love dogs, but you're losing that spontaneity of learning about the kangaroo. If you didn't think you knew, or you didn't like kangaroos, but all of a sudden you are sitting there and you watch something on kangaroos and you learn all these fascinating things. And I feel like that could happen basically in any sort of situation if we can just kind of step back and take a breather and just talk to each other, and then you will get more details, and you can hopefully get a little bit more of an unbiased viewpoint if you can take everybody's perceptions in. And I just think that, like, that's what was crossing my mind as I was listening to all of you talking. It's just that media is not horrible. It has so many great purposes. And all of our new technology has great purposes, but I would say, that's one thing that I feel like if everybody could just, take a step back and take a breather and just, talk to each other, just
that's it.
About anything, just whatever comes to mind.
Don't jump on the bandwagon so quickly.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry, Gail.
Right? I mean, talk to each other, and maybe we all need to do a better job at listening. Because.
Right.
We might tend to believe that. I think of the 1957 movie 12 Angry Men, and everybody they're in the one room. They didn't spend a lot of money on this movie. It literally took place in one room, and they're all trying to find out if a Latino boy is guilty of allegedly killing his father. And but what happens is the men that are in the room are going through their own personal biases, like hasty generalization. One of them has tickets to a baseball game, and he says, let's just make a decision. I got to get to the baseball game. Well, that's not how you make a decision. This is so important. It doesn't, your baseball game can wait. So I think we all need to step back and maybe avoid some of the hasty generalizations so quickly and be open to listening to different viewpoints. Even in that movie, there's an older man, and nobody will listen to him because they don't like older people, apparently, in the movie. But he has some very good points to make. So we do have to be open. So if you go ahead.
Yo, I'm so sorry to interrupt, because I feel like this was in my notes and it's perfect, and then you bring it up. And I've been thinking about this, yo. I want to, Sierra, yo. This whole thing, I've been wanting to hear what you got to say
Yeah.
about these things. Please tell me what's going on. How do you feel about the
Well,
biases,
no.
yo?
So that's it. I mean, so there's confirmation bias. Okay, these are
No, 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 my bad. I'm so
Oh
sorry. I
yeah,
want
no.
to hear
Let's
from
hear it.
my
Let's hear it. Go
producer.
ahead,
That's just because I like her. I like her opinion. I
Sierra.
thought I don't know. I was wondering
Yeah,
what
I
she thinking.
agree with a lot of what you're saying. How like just constant biases, and I love that the two or the three of you have like put this together like as a guidebook for how to like wade through the trash kind of. And
Yeah.
because I remember like even in school, we would learn about like different things and how to like analyze how people we basically would learn about what people aren't doing. And there hasn't been a lot of resources for people to actually say like, okay, well then what do you want me to do? Like I'm not going to not go on Instagram, like, if you have a business or if you just want to, you're not going to stay out of those things. So it's like, how do you figure out a way to navigate that?
Yeah.
I do have a question
Oh,
though.
sure.
It's coming. What do the two of you think about like, I guess where that, I guess the end to that, like what, because to me, I feel like when it comes to bias and the misinformation and the disinformation, it's like so much of that is intentional. And so much of that is intentional to the point where like there's too much benefit to openly misleading
Well,
people.
no. So right. Well, there is a term called cognitive dissonance, and that's an unsettling feeling when your behaviors are different than your thoughts. Than your thoughts. So so at the end of the book, I I ask people to consider that, you know, if you screamed fire in a theater and there was no fire, you would be arrested. And but if you share a piece of information that you know isn't properly vetted, that's a false narrative, you should experience cognitive dissonance. But a lot of us, why do we not experience it? That's what you're asking, Sierra. You're asking why do we not experience it? Because people have. When I attended this conference in 2018, I presented a paper on fake ads at the Oxford Internet Conference. And what I discovered there is that people will share, not everybody, but many people will share information just to try to get a person elected, even if they didn't vet it. So, like you said, Sierra, it's what's in it for them, right? It's always what's in it for somebody. Somebody's always making money off the information, or they're trying to win an argument for the information. But why would you want to win an argument with false facts and false information? A lot of people just want to have that zinger, maybe a zinger. Here's a zinger. I got a piece of information. I'm going to send it out, and it's going to help me win my argument because people aren't going to fact check it or base it. So I can't say what motivates every individual. I think we're all a little guilty. We've all had at times. I believe we've all had times where we've sent something and said to ourselves, "Oops, I don't think I should have sent that." And so Gail's got another amazing illustration for that too, by the way. Oops, how can I unsend it? Wait till you see that. I think it's on page 37. So, but the bottom line is that we could create a program that could take any piece of information and maybe tell you the overall percentage of bias associated with it, but even that wouldn't tell you your personal biases. So, but your question is a great question, Sierra, because what it's asking is that why would people want to share a false narrative when they know it's bad information? And probably for their own profit or their own political gain, right? That's what the Kirkus Review, that when they reviewed our book, that's what they said. Because they said, and we're very grateful, they gave us a very good review, but then at the end of their review, they said the book cannot answer the question as to why anybody would want to share a false narrative, but people still do, unfortunately. Yeah, money. Yes.
Money,
Yep.
money.
Yeah. Well, and I remember
Um,
Yeah.
some of the songs when I was growing up in the
what
70s, I forgot some of the names of the groups, but, there was one song that said money is the root of all evil. Um, you know, it, it, you know, there was a song called "The Backstabbers." I forgot who sang it. The OJs. Thank you, thank
Oh
you.
yeah, the
All right, we've got
OJs.
a
The
Motown man
OJs.
in the
Yeah.
crowd
Yeah.
here from Detroit. Yes, yes. Uh, but yeah, they smile in your
Oh
face,
yeah, that
and
is the
all the
oh
time they
shoot.
want to take your place. The backstabbers. So, but yeah, but see, so I'll tell you, our leaders in government, leaders who operate the internet. I'm a little disappointed that they don't have more town halls. That, with the disinformation from the pandemic, when they first came out and said, if you get the vaccine, you won't be able to transmit the virus. But we know that that's not true today. But you know, when people say things and we learn new information through science, they've got to continue educating us. But I think that we need more town halls. The television stations, they're taking a lot of money right now from the online gambling apps on our phone. Why don't they do more town halls to help separate disinformation? And so I'm a little disappointed in that aspect of
Yeah,
journalism
yeah,
right now.
So embarrassing.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I see. I said this I think a couple episodes ago, but I really truly think that internet and social media is not going anywhere. It's only growing. So I I like the idea, like what Gail was saying about pulling back and getting away from it. But sometimes I'm like, we need to like try to fix what we have going on so that because I do think it's a great opportunity to have someone that only knows something about a certain. If we're going to the animal thing, if I only know about that dinosaur, it's good that I can be in a town hall with other people, and social media gives me that ability, and internet gives you that ability. It really, and I'm gonna keep saying this because every episode I'm like, but it's just capitalism that really kind of just makes it like really hard to do, or the fact that we need money to
Well,
spread information or to want to spread
no, so let me think.
information.
So in the
It kind of yes.
1980s, 1990s, the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission, they had a requirement where time will be provided for opposing views on local television stations and radio stations. And what that meant is at the end of the news broadcast, if you had a different opinion, they would say, "Hey, come on our show, tell us your different opinion, we'll help you." But then they ran into a problem. The problem was that there could be 50 different opinions, and they didn't have time to invite everybody for the opinion. So they stopped that rule, like I think maybe in the 1990s. And they stopped that rule because there could be 50 different sides to a story. And so I guess what I'm saying is that the internet is a great tool. I think TikTok is an amazing app. I think what an invention where you can swipe through, get different opinions on different topics. But I think like anything else, it's sort of like when something new comes along, if we don't educate people about it, they can abuse it. How many people are going to fall victim to these online, the smartphone gambling apps that are, out there now? All of a sudden, with one button during the pandemic, they all got permission, you know, and so yeah, they might have to run a public service message every once in a while to say, be careful, you could get addicted to gambling. But we should run. We got to make the companies more responsible. They should have public service messages. Be careful, don't scroll through TikTok more than an hour. Be care.
Well, it's
Yeah,
always at the
yeah.
bottom, or it's always very fast. Like
Well,
if
that's
you're
it.
an addict, call this
Facebook
hotline, or
doesn't even
this
have
this will cause
a
harm.
customer service telephone number. Even Amazon, I have to give Amazon a shout out because even when I have a problem with something that I buy or on the back end, if it's a book that I've published or something, they have a team of people that will call you back and talk to you and try to settle the Facebook. No, I don't know how it. Go ahead. Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
I
no,
mean, sorry to interrupt, but Amazon, the items are the
I
products, and
get. You know
Facebook
what,
were the products,
Brandon,
right? So
man,
why would
you
they
hit the nail
serve
on
the
the head
customer?
there.
Ooh, that was good.
You hit. Ouch. Oh wait, wait,
I
wait.
rem-
Sure did.
My
Yeah,
finger. Hold on.
I read that on
Woo!
a Facebook
It's
post.
hurting.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes, how Facebook got that powerful. I guess they have the right lobbyists, and it's I guess it's a money thing. When you have a lot of money, you got a lot of power. And now they're going into the meta universe, and I think three-dimensional is wonderful. But if you think
Scary.
about the crimes that have been committed on Facebook, and I'm not trying to poo-poo social networks. I like social networks. I use them. But what's going to happen in the meta universe out there? What kind of crime? What's going to be what are the new biases that are going to occur there? We don't even know yet, I guess. But the bottom line is that you know government can't solve everything, but we do need to have more. What's the thing that regulations in play? There was a time in the 1990s. Let me just go back there again. I'm going back in the, when you opened up a newspaper, and some of the advertisers got smart. They made their they made their ad look like a story, so that you would buy their medicine and buy their product. But they were forced back then to put the word advertisement above the story. That's not required anymore. And and if anybody can set up a website and it's not being controlled, and anybody can post to Facebook, they're trying to police. They say they're trying to police it. They say they have a team of police, and they're trying. But in my opinion, they could do a whole better job. So, it's especially when they know that their product is being used by a lot of people. When you've got a billion when Facebook hit a billion people using Facebook, we've never had a magazine with that much circulation, to my knowledge. So, but yeah, so here we all are. Oops, and we're getting a different view, the single view. So,
How are y'all both gonna get disconnected?
uh-oh.
See?
You know what? I think well, you know what? They had such excellent questions, and they broke the system, I think. You guys got disconnected because your questions were too good, and you hit the nail on the
How
head
y'all
there,
gonna get kicked
Brandon.
off when you're sitting there together?
Oh, yeah, yeah. No. So we're just saying that, there's Facebook has over a billion subscribers. I don't think there's ever been a magazine. Never. That'd be a lot of paper. But the bottom line is, so the book also will help people understand what's a journalistic source as opposed to, an individual source. And, can the journalists take sides? Of course they can. There's six entities that control 90% of all the information we're exposed to, Brandon. Six entities that control 90% of all the information. It's in the book. And, but, that's where we've got to take charge as individuals, and we've got to do our due diligence, use information with prudence. And, somewhere along the line, people were given permission to use colorful metaphors, to swear, to whoop it up, to be dramatic. Listen, we need to make sure that when we convey information, we want to make it interesting. But when people aren't backing the information with facts and good information, that's a red flag, And that's what's been happening. So we have a chapter on fallacies. And there are certain politicians that like to use certain fallacies, and the book talks about a couple of them. But we remain non-biased. We did, because we want to let people get at the facts on their own. So, but I think that people will really enjoy that chapter on fallacies, and then critical thinking. That's you can't find good information without putting your own critical thinking to work, meaning take a step back, take a deep breath, and analyze the information. And, it can wait. You can respond to somebody in a half hour if you can, rather than instantaneously, and get better information. And that's what the book also talks about.
This is making me think about, I don't know when it was, sometime on the podcast, maybe a year and a half ago, I was just saying, I was on a treadmill and I had those row of TVs, you don't get to pick what's on them. And right in the middle were two TVs. One was CNN, the other was Fox News. And on the left, it said, blah, blah is blah, blah, blah. And on the right, it was talking about the exact same subject. It said, blah, blah is not blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I have decent critical thinking skills, but it's just hilarious that, like, I feel not about CNN or Fox News, but I feel like in the depths of everything that's going on, to even understand the intricacies of, for example, local government or U.S. politics as a whole, like I feel like I would need a degree in poli-sci to even start sifting through this stuff. I'm curious what both of you guys think about that.
Well, no. So I mean, I would recommend. So just Robert's Rules of Order is just how the meetings are run. But even though the book divides information into 7 categories, the categories can overlap. Mm-hmm. You could have an individual who's part of a nonprofit. You could have an individual who's a for-profit. You could have an individual who's a government, individual's academic. So it all depends on that piece of information that you're looking at. I get it. When you were there working out, they might have said CNN was to the left, Fox was to the right, and there's a truth to that. There's truth to that for sure. Okay, because they're playing to an audience, and that audience is their bread and butter. So, but there used to be what we call mirror, like journalists pledged to mirror the news, not to editorialize about the news. So a lot of newspapers back in the 1920s and 30s, they had the name Mirror in their name because their job was to mirror the news. But even in my local area where I live in Detroit, there was a famous newscaster named Bill Bonds. He had quite a personality, and he was even in the movie The Planet of the Apes. That's how good he was. He had a great voice, a great professional image, but he would often sugarcoat the news with his own personal editorials. And that, after a while, but because that led to good ratings, they let him stand for a long time, and occasionally he would even say, I'm giving you my opinion too. But then you have the guys like Walter Cronkite, who were, mirroring the news for CBS. So, but getting back, you're right. It's a lot, that's why Dr. Voss, the School of Journalism, Michigan State University, in his foreword, he says, if somebody gives you 1,000 pages of what went on in Congress today, they'll say to you, I was being transparent. Here's the information. But we don't have time to go through 1,000 pages to know what was said. Mm-hmm. So we need to rely on our circle. We need to rely on our own information, and we need to investigate. We all need to be, unfortunately, we all need to do a little investigative journalism. It's just like if the doctor told you needed a procedure, if you, Brandon, or me, or Gail, if the doctor said, okay, well, I think I'm going to go get a second opinion before I go in for the surgery, unless there's an emergency, right? So I think maybe we all need to get a second opinion on everything, right?
And I was thinking about how, what we can build upon right now with the way that things are going, and the idea that Brandon brought up about, the TV networks. And I feel like now the mainstream TV networks are, either black or white, right or left. And I feel like that's how a lot of things are going. And I'm kind of comparing it to how a lot of us watch TV now, where I know a lot of my TV shows that I stream. I don't watch a lot on the regular networks anymore. And you're getting to benefit from some of these kind of built from the ground, just little grassroots things, and kind of like podcasts. And so I wonder if, in the future, that is going to be where we can find like the middle ground, the middle sort of the voice of reason, the hopefully as unbiased voice as possible is just kind of like these grassroots efforts that aren't built on capitalist ideas, that maybe have just a few more philanthropic ideas, or just a feel good atmosphere about themselves. They actually want to provide correct news rather than news that they are feeding to their listeners, the ones that the news that they think that their listeners need to hear. So that's just something that popped into my head as we were talking here, is that I feel like maybe there's something to all of these.
Well, that's it. And I mean,
and
so
like
we all need to start this and continue this grassroots effort of media literacy, right? Media literacy, because, as important, when you learn how to ride a bike, you learn how to drive a car. I think it's about time that we all need to sit back and learn how to use media and be literate about it, because it's certainly just going to continue growing. These social networks are going to grow. Television stations are going to be bought and sold by different entities that have different opinions. And so on and so forth. And I was asked in a previous podcast, well, what about religion? What about the biases there? Well, they're a nonprofit. We're appealing to authority there. If something happened, well, you got to do your research. Find out more information. I was the co-author of another book series called 2020 Prudent Leadership. Prudence goes back to biblical days, and when I think of the word prudence, I think of how useful it is today. We all need to be prudent with information, and not let these enterprises control us so much on a day-to-day basis. We all need to be our own thinkers. I also think, by the way, there was a 1971 cartoon called The Sneetchers by Dr. Seuss. If you've never seen this video, it is absolutely amazing. There's these star-bellied Sneetchers on a beach, and they're all so proud of themselves. They love the way they look. And then, of course, across the water on the other side of the beach, there are Sneetchers without stars on their bellies, and they just want to get a star. And this guy comes along, and by the way, he's no relation to me. His name is Erik Bean, and he's got a machine. And he says, for $10 a piece, I will put a star on your belly. Come along. And all the non-star belly Sneetchers, they come along, $10, $10. They come out with their star, and they say, you can't keep us out of our group now. We've got a star. And what do you think happens with the star belly Sneetchers? What do you think they do to get back at the non-star belly Sneetchers?
Make themselves more.
They ask Erik Bean, can you remove our star? And what does Erik Bean say? Absolutely. Give me another $10 a piece, and I will remove your star. And one by one. So Erik Bean, no relation to me, he's getting away. He's making all the money off of everybody's biases, everybody's prejudices. And for some reason, that story stuck in my head, and I think it's going on a lot today in a lot of different ways. So that's why I tell everybody that my book is a nonprofit.
Well, this is my hot take. This is what my aha moment is. Everybody here, you, me, Gail, Sierra, Brandon, everybody and their mama really has a bias. There is no helping that bias, right? This is what I'm hearing. Not for profit, no matter what you say, is a bias. Same thing with profits, a bias. All these are biases. So there should be, I think, some accountability on the people giving their bias, and I thought of self-awareness. So I think that maybe we can educate the people to let them know, hey, this is the bias that I have as much as you can. Like, hey, I am Phines Jackson, and I am speaking from this perspective, and this is my bias. So then that my listener or viewer or consumer can understand. I find since there's no way to get rid of my bias, is to be as upfront about my bias as I can. So I think that's my aha moment. Self-awareness. Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no. So no, and that's great. No, no, that's great. What you're saying is that people who are transparent
Yes.
and people who are
I put that
authentic,
transparent.
and
Okay, go ahead.
right,
Yeah.
then that's there you go. You were and by saying what you said, you were being authentic, you were being transparent, and you got through all of the noise. And by the way, the book talks about the semantic noise. That's all the things that are getting in the way of us even listening to one another. Okay, so but you're right. I mean, so we can never remove our 100% of our biases, but we can learn to understand how we got there, right?
Right.
And we can learn, but when it comes to information and sharing information and absorbing information, there's a price to pay, and for some, it can affect your relationships with people, right? This is what the book talks about. It can affect if you're going to follow a false cause, right? Drink from the Kool-Aid. It could, affect your mental health, and it should, on a day-to-day basis. We all want to be, we should all strive for good mental health, and that's part of the equation. And then, obviously, the people who are more at risk in our communities, like I said in the beginning of the interview, who are autistic, they have a lot more time, even understanding the difference between fiction and nonfiction these days, right, guys?
Yeah.
So we need to work with them too. So great points. Thank you very much for inviting us on today.
Yeah, Eric and Gail, would you both agree with that sentiment that there are biases that are inherent that you can't get rid of?
I do. Yes, I agree. Yep. Yep. And that's why, but I think at
Oh,
the
yeah.
same time,
Definitely.
that's why we all need to be open and do a better job, I guess, listening to each other and understanding where those biases came from. Yep. Good points.
Yeah.
Were you about to say something, Gail?
No, sorry. I would if I had something great to say right now, but I don't.
Probably do.
Your art is amazing.
But you know what,
by the
guys?
way.
Yeah, we didn't even talk
Yeah.
about. Yeah, I'm a aspiring illustrator myself, so it's really cool. And I put this in my notes too. I really enjoy Eric, for you putting so many people on your I like that you're I'm putting the team on. We're gonna do an interview and I'm gonna bring everybody that's a part of this. I really find that that's very cool of you. And
That was very nice of him.
Well, and I couldn't have done it without Gail. I mean, it's a team effort, and Sherry couldn't make it tonight. She was the editor. She brought me back down to earth. When I wanted to add something, she goes, "Nope, come back down to earth, Eric. That's too much information. Eric, that's your professor, your academic son. No, come on, we want to make sure everybody."
And even
so I learned a lot.
And even the deadline, when you asked about how the process worked, Eric is definitely one of those where he wants to get it out, but he wanted to make sure that he could share it with the world as quickly as possible. And Sherry was the one that would say, "No, we can't rush this. We have to make sure that it's good." So Sherry gets a lot of kudos for that.
Without a doubt, a lot of T's to cross and I's to dots. And there's an old saying: every good writer needs a good editor, and every good editor needs a good writer. So and don't underestimate that process for those who are out there, writing a book. And then the illustrator, if you can be as lucky as we are to have somebody who's so talented like Gail, and I know she's very modest, but to put it all together, I mean, it was Gail who taught me, when she came up with the unicorn, for the symbol for individualism, that was amazing. And just the colors, the shadows, the textures. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Gail knows how I feel, but so grateful. But the book is available on Amazon. It's available on Barnes & Noble. You can even get the audio book, but we hope you'll get the regular book to see the illustrations. But the audio book is as inexpensive as $6. Libraries can order the book through the Baker and Taylor. They're the national library distributor. And this spring, I'm so excited to tell everybody, we're going on the road with our Fact from Fiction bias workshops at libraries across Michigan. And we're also doing one for the teens on suspect bias for
Mm.
teens in their development years. So check out our schedule at biashandbook.com.
Wow, yeah,
Yeah,
That's my ad.
congratulations.
yeah, nice. Um,
Thanks.
I'm just gonna just because my illustration heads was me. I wanna
Go ahead.
I wanna know I wanna know how you got how you found Gail, how Gail found you. What how
Collaborative process.
yeah
Great.
how'd you get to be illustrating in the
Well,
book,
you know,
Gail? I'm
yeah.
sorry.
So originally, to tell you guys
Sherry.
the truth, yeah, yeah. So Sherry, her good friend, brought us together when we were writing the book. I started a nonprofit, the Ethan Bean Mental Wellness Foundation, which was named after my son who had, autism and mental illness. And so we were looking for an illustrator. I also had another individual that helped us with the original book, she was very helpful in coming up with the idea for Ethan's Healthy Mind Express, and Emily helped with that. But then we needed somebody to come up with illustrations that were going to be much more captivating. So Sherry, I got together. She was a longtime family friend, and she thought of Gail, and the rest, as they say, is history from there.
Yeah.
Very, very fortunate.
Yeah. I think just speaking of bias again, it's interesting. Since that first book was a children's book, that's something that I was trying to keep in mind as we were doing the illustrations for the children's book, is trying to incorporate as many different children, different looks as possible, so that you don't just have, 5-year-old white boys that are the focus of every single illustration. So that was actually something that I tried to keep as a focus during the children's book. And then a little bit, I mean, obviously this one too, but this one wasn't a children's book, so I didn't have to have children in every, or even people in every single illustration. But yeah, I definitely was, that's one of the things that I'd like to see in children's book, is just more diversity with everything, just, hobbies and looks and whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and these are,
and you, I mean,
in the
one of the
original
things
book.
I was also note down is like there must be some type of talent in writing, editing, and illustrating to put bias in 57 pages, because it ain't no like they ain't like that's not like something you like that's the whole thing. So it takes it takes quite a bit of work. So I'm yeah, thank you and good job.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, you know what? Well, so that's where, I put my journalism hat on, and I taught English composition for
The mic.
Put your
17
mic up.
years. Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
mic
but
on. Well, here I go. I taught English composition for 17 years, and I put my journalism hat on. But when I was teaching it, I noticed that my students, the quality of their sources were going down every year, because they weren't doing their due diligence to come up with, sources that were well vetted, right, for their papers. And so, that's part of the equation. And then we did our research, and there are a couple of other books out there that warn people about media bias, but they're 300 pages. And I'm like, they don't have time to go through all that stuff. So it was absolutely critical that we created, a short book that got right to, but it wasn't easy to come up on it, with the bias assessment form. We had to take in objectivity and have the reader rate that for the piece. Conflict of interest, rate that. And then my associate, Laura Ann McLaury, said, well, let's make sure that we include personal biases in there. So that's part of the rating. And then, so all of these pieces came together. And then at the same time, we relayed this all back to Gail. Gail, can you develop this? Can you do this? And then Sherry, what do we need to edit to make it all come together? So we're still waiting to hear. The book is up for several contests right now. We're keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that those judges will see the value in the book.
Yeah, I'm curious. So you guys both have teaching backgrounds. You both worked with students in deep capacities, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
I was an elementary school teacher for
Yeah.
the first 5 years, I think 4 years. And then I decided, I actually had a parent that came to me and asked if I would tutor her daughter in math over the summer. And that's when I decided that I wanted to tutor full time. But yes, I have that education.
I was just talking. It's very coincidental, but yeah, serendipitous. Thank you. I don't know what prudent means either, but
with goodwill. It means goodwill.
Goodwill.
Yep.
Goodwill. Thank you for our audience. That yeah. But the friend that I was talking to just became a full-time elementary school teacher. And it's very coincidental because we were talking about, I think, students of all ages, but the sort of power that you wield as a mentor, as a teacher figure, especially if they're younger, and like the bias that you bring to that. And like, I don't know if I would, I don't even want to assume a role like that, because I think it's such an amazing and noble thing to do, but it must be so tricky, right? Like, how do you guys both navigate those waters with all the stuff that you're bringing from your background and then trying to be as sort of diplomatic? And the craziest part was we were talking about our third grade teachers as if it was yesterday, after we were talking about how he just started teaching. And I'm like, we're imprinting on people for life. I mean, it's really, big task.
Yeah.
Gail, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that is something that I definitely think is super important. And I think that there is a fine line there between trying to instill all those good values and trying to show what's right and wrong, but then at the same time, there's going to be some things that you consider wrong and some other people will consider right. So you're right. There's definitely some gray area there. And I think for me as a teacher, I just try to be as personable as possible, but I definitely I don't show my hand as to what my thoughts are that would have that influence over other students if I don't think it's something that is truly like a value. Like, of course, I'm going to tell people, you should say thank you, or you should help elderly people, or all these things that we think of as a society as the right thing to do. I want to definitely encourage those things, but I'm always actually surprised that that students that I have worked with for a long time actually do pick up on some of my personality traits, because I do try to hide them from them as much as possible. But when students say I'll say something and they'll say, oh, because you are a nonconformist. I've actually had students that tell me that I'm a nonconformist, and I would never think that they would pick up on that at all. So there you go. There's where, like, I am actually conscious of it, and I still must give something away that shows people like these traits that I have. So even when you try to stop it, it's just, it's going to be there. But I think that, as long as you are just always trying to keep that in mind. And one of the reasons why teaching is such a great profession in the first place is because you do get to see these kids grow, from something where they don't know how to do certain things, and they don't have a lot of confidence always. And you can see them just develop. And I don't know why you would want to try to make them into a little mini you or something else that it's not them, because that's what should be so fulfilling about teaching, is seeing these individuals grow into who they are and not who you are or who you would want them to be. So that's
Yeah.
I agree with Gail. I mean, but in the classroom, my goal, they have something called edutainment. I want to be always the type of teacher that makes the learning fun. It's all about the subject that we're studying at that point in time, you know, and making it interesting and doing different things and shaking it up. But Gail is right. We don't want to mold every student to be exactly like us. We want to let the students become the individuals that they, can become and live to their fullest potential. But that's what I think is so rewarding about being a teacher, and it is not an easy job. You have to get everybody's attention in the classroom. Some students are looking up, when they should be looking at the material, and but the bottom line is that especially with social media, we have to make things engaging. We have to engage the students. And so I've worked in a lot of assignments that include social media because I know that they like using it, right? So but then I have to say to them, hey, d- you know, prudent, don't overdo it. Don't overdo it. It's not just
Yeah.
goodwill, it's also to be, I mean, you could look at a lot of definitions of it to be frugal, and prudence varies internationally. I was at a conference in, I think it was October of 2018 as well, International Leadership Association conference. We did a roundtable. We asked people what's your definition of prudence, and people from other this one individual said when it came to using an orange, they use the rind as well. They don't just eat the orange and throw the rind away. So they say that we use food prudently. We use every part of the food. We don't waste any of it, and that was prudence to them, and so it varies. But the bottom line is that students are very impressionable, especially in elementary school, and boy, teachers there, every 20 minutes they've got to switch. We got to do math now. 20 minutes later, we got to do social studies now. 20 minutes later, we got to do, break out your books, break out this, and it's it's a lot of work, but you've got to make sure that the students are the ones who win ultimately in the end by giving them information
Yeah.
and letting them run with it.
What were you gonna say, Finance?
I got a
Yeah.
bunch of okay. So, all right. One, I just have a joke at Gail. It thinks it's funny. I don't know what Sierra's wall looks like, but all our walls are white. Yellow's my favorite color, but it just shows me like you're so unconformist. You can't even hide it, yo. You like kind of like.
Although I did notice that my
It's
sweatshirt matches my walls, which I did not plan. So
yeah, it does. No, I love it. I love it. This is great.
It's really the color
yeah.
coordination.
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of it just is like sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes it just bleeds from you that you're just
That's
you know
right.
what you are.
Yeah.
My next joke is I guess worse, but because we live in a capitalistic system too, I'm like, and I'm hearing all this kids are impressionable. Why don't I just put advertisement on these kids' teachers? Like teachers. I'm just making jokes, but it just seems like I would have spent a lot of money on these teachers and try to be like, hey, go ahead and put a Kit Kat commercial in while you're doing teaching class because these kids they're gonna remember
Yep.
third grade.
Yeah, I have something off of that too because you're saying I want them to get this information, but I need it to be fun so that they pay attention. I'm like, the Facebook boardroom probably is saying the same thing.
True.
Yeah,
Well, no,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
No, you're right. And so, right. So
Yeah.
education is competing, with all that. That's so. In 2015, I did a book called Social Media Lesson Plans using Facebook and YouTube, and to compete with those social media networks, and
Right.
you know, so because again, that's where students spend their time, and if we're not where they spend their time, we're not where the party is. But that's why everybody, enterprise system. People are going there because they can make money there. People are going there because they can be heard there. People are going there because they can be part of a national conversation. And students go there to have fun, but they can also go there to learn as well. So there's a lot of different uses for it. But that's why our original book, Ethan's Healthy Mind Express, with Emily Wazak, who for the original main author, we wanted to make sure that we did a rhyming book, but we also wanted to make sure that we included a book to warn even kids about the internet, and we did. We warned them that not everything you read on the internet is true, even for that age group, 5 to 10. And we even warned about the dark web, because when you download an app from your phone, they could be stealing information from it, and so on and so forth. And then people said, well, you can't warn people about, young kids about the dark web. They're too young. And then I thought, wait a minute. Let's go back to Mr. Rogers from the 1960s. He did a whole episode on after the shooting, the 1968 shooting of Bobby Kennedy, and he did a whole episode on the word assassination on his program. So if Mr. Rogers can talk about assassination to his audience in the late 1960s for children, we got to talk about the dark web. You can't wait, right? So I know I'm coming back to my education mantra here, but we've got to let those kids know and let parents know, and
It's okay.
yeah.
I feel you. It's tough with when's the right age, because also the world is what it is. Sometimes, and who am I to say what age someone is going to just because I think a kid's not appropriate to interact with the dark web doesn't mean that a 3-year-old isn't picking up someone's phone right now into the world. So education and having those understandings of things as soon as possible would probably be beneficial for the more tools available for the youth, anybody really, is probably best. But that one's kind of iffy for me still, because I'm like, I don't know. That's a hard topic to go back and to think about. But I do get you with the education thing. At least to kind of know what it is to a certain
That's
extent.
it. And then and then there, quite frankly, in some of these areas, there's some teachers that don't understand it all either, because that's not their cup of tea, right? Elementary school teachers are more concerned with, reading, writing, phonics, math, dark web. Whoop, you gonna throw that one in too? I don't know. Maybe after the state says it's
Go to
okay.
the counselor's office.
Right?
You go do it. Go to the therapist. Yeah.
As far as the social media, this is something that I've had on my mind for quite a while. Is I don't know if you've seen like The Social Dilemma, or there's a lot of different things, and every solution I heard is a cold turkey solution to this social media bias problem, and it's actually very interesting and like exciting to hear you guys say that you like social media and that there can be a balance. I'm very curious, why you guys differ so much from the cold turkey approach.
Because we live in a modern society, and I wouldn't want somebody to say to me, Erik, tomorrow, we're not going to allow social media, but by the way, we're also not going to allow you to make a telephone call. And we're not going to allow you, to listen to the radio, and we're not going to allow you to drive in your car, because that's a piece of.
Well, not legislators or authoritarians or whatever making those rules against it. I'm saying the individual's willpower of either get off of that stuff to defuse your brain or
so it's I guess we'd have to ask the cigarette smokers. There was even, I think Dick Van Dyke did a movie about cold turkey where he tried to quit smoking. I I guess it was a good movie. Uh, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say I would not advocate for 100% cold turkey. I would just say that we need to really let's make our children smart and let's make them understand that free enterprise is leading this whole show, and that if you follow along with it and you drink from the Kool-Aid, be careful. And
I
I
don't
know we
think.
would say that to children in those words, obviously. But go ahead, Gail. You were gonna.
No, I was just going to say, I just don't think that cold turkey
Yeah.
is that realistic at this point.
No.
Like
No.
Vina said that, some of these things are here to stay. I don't think that we're going to turn back now. And even if some people decided to go cold turkey, I think that that's just not
Yeah.
how the society is set up at this point. So I think it's to me, it just seems more realistic to try to cope with what we have, what we've created, what good can come from this, and everything. We can always move forward. Just because we have technology that can do evil things doesn't mean that that we have to use it for that purpose. We can try to fix it or move forward and be good influencers on other people. So
Well, that's
I
it.
feel like
Yeah.
And your podcast fits into the frame of it. I mean, this is part of a national conversation, international, about how social media affects each one of us. And it's
Yeah, I mean, I thank you for the additional compliment, but I think it speaks to why podcasting in like the last 5 years or 10 years has blown up so crazily. Is people are really desperate for 2-hour conversations. I mean, it's weird that there's been this 30-second soundbite thing for so long, and then it's become a multi-million-dollar industry very quickly. Just people
well,
sitting and talking.
I knew
So
originally that we would have the technology for all of us to have our own television stations. But then I thought to myself, though, can we
yeah,
get people to actually
great point.
tune in, right? So, but I don't know if I can go for 2 hours tonight. But I know that you're right. The sound bites, people don't really. Some of them are ingrained in our heads, especially if they're very dramatic, you know. But the bottom line is that we need to encourage more. But I think we also, getting back to those town halls, and the TV
Hmm.
stations, they need to be part of this as well, because they've got such a big audience still, right? The radio stations, the TV stations, so on and so forth. But just to get the word out, but I know we're chilling here, and it's good. We want to chill, and and but I think people are hungry for good information, and part of the process is trying to find it, right?
Shapiro, you situate yourself.
What was that?
Baby.
Right. Yeah. What?
I was talking to my dog. I'm so sorry.
There's a dog here that's like
My dog is
making a
so,
lot of.
he's just snoring. I'm like, keep your
Get
head
along
out.
to
We did
yeah.
have a whole snoring episode. He's good.
Mhm.
I'm like, hey,
You're lucky. I hope he comes on. He was saying any
Oh,
minute now, but Grandpa, the heart of the show, he has a bird that usually provides ambiance for the
oh
entire
no.
Oh,
podcast.
that's good.
now we have dog snoring.
Yeah,
Is he
yeah,
still? Is he planning on coming on?
yeah. Well, I'm gonna call him back. You guys, Sierra, I'm very curious.
Please
Yeah,
entertain us
yeah.
while we mute ourselves.
All right, we're standing by.
Wow, really just threw the pressure on there and wandered away. Just
It's because
muted and
I'm
wandered
sorry.
away.
Let me know what I'm here. I got you.
Stakes are
Yeah.
high.
Now, there is something else. Okay, I have more more thoughts. We're talking about this. Let me look at more of my notes.
I do just want to reiterate, Gail, that the art is lovely. Like your whole medium is like I never would have thought of something like that. And there's so much detail and like the textures.
Yeah,
I love them.
I don't know. I can't really put it into words, but once I started working with paper and that tactile sense of the paper, that's when I decided that was my medium that I wanted to use. And yeah, it's really fun. And actually, when I create the illustrations, I try not to glue things down as much as possible so that when I take the pictures, it translates as much of that depth as I can get. So yeah, it's interesting. Yeah. It works. And then, if I don't want to sneeze or cough in the middle because all the pieces will go blowing in a million directions. But yeah, it's definitely like been a nice little hobby and a outlet for my creative juices there. And it's kind of fun to kind of get the image in my head first of what I want to create. And then I have just a million pieces of paper, scrap paper, rolls of paper, any sort of paper that I can find that I think is interesting. I have it in all these different parts of our house. So I'll scrummage through all of my paper to see what will work for a particular image or a particular part of an image. And then put it all together. And then, sometimes we can add other elements. I'm sorry, my computer is blowing up at the moment. It's making all these noises. But
Gail, what about Gail, how you add the shadows, and then where do you source the paper too, if that's possible?
Well, yeah, the paper. I'll just grab it from anywhere. There are nice, stores that actually do sell these papers, and some of them you could go broke buying these beautiful papers that they get it from all over the world. So in my dreams, I would definitely, buy any and all of those papers that I could. So sometimes I'll splurge and I'll buy a little bit. But really, I mean, I can get paper that's interesting from anything, junk mail. It always makes me feel good when I can reuse something that I would normally just recycle. I can use it first and then recycle it. And so, yeah, it's kind of neat to see where you can find interesting papers. And the shadows come from the fact that I don't glue anything down. So I can prop it up with like a little bit of, like museum putty behind it just to give it that depth.
Wait, so that's real?
Yeah, that's real shadow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I've gotten better with Photoshop because once I lay everything out and I take a photo, then I crop it in Photoshop. And I have gotten better with Photoshop where I know what I'm doing a little bit, but I don't want to overuse Photoshop because I want it to be the real thing. So, everything. Most.
But even using Photoshop, that it makes it even more meta. I mean, it makes it even like because you can add another layer on Photoshop. That's still really cool what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah,
cool.
It's been a lot of fun.
I'm looking at the bandwagon and I'm just obsessed.
Yeah, seriously, I did not know that. That's such a cool. Thank you for asking that question, Eric, bringing it up because that is such a cool way to do some art.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's just kind of something that came kind of organically as I was working through things, and it just worked for me, and I really liked the results. And and then it's kind of fun. We've added some other elements, like in the children's book. I actually I had a bubble machine that was blowing bubbles over my illustration as I took the picture so that I could get real bubbles over these like little illustrations of bubbles that I had done. And so once in a while we're able to incorporate some other things in there as well. So I don't know. I don't know what really prompted me to start making illustrations like this. It just kind of worked for me, and I really like the results. So yeah, Eric's got the picture there.
Wow.
So I don't know. You can't really tell easily from the screen that there are real bubbles in there, but there are. And actually, Erik pointed out that in one of the real bubbles, you can actually see a picture, or the reflection of me taking the picture, and my windows in the back, in the reflection of the real bubble. So it's kind of cool. It's my little signature on there, I guess.
Wow.
Oh my God! Thank you for doing that flex. That is so nice, yo. That was yes, that was nice.
Thank
That is
you.
nice.
And how does it work? Like Erik, you have a background in sort of researching bias, right? And then Gail, you said that when you started this book project, that wasn't your expertise, but I imagine you had to put a lot of work into sort of learning that vision and that subject. Like, do you get the book when it's already written and then draw after?
Let's see, we were doing, for the children's book, it was all written, and I just did the illustrations afterwards. For the bias book, we were basically, the three of us were working at it simultaneously from the beginning, and Erik had the idea and he was working on writing it, but I think we were all pretty much talking about the subjects and what each chapter would hold. And so basically, as he was writing it, I think I was already starting the illustrations. Wasn't that right, Erik?
No, that's it. I mean, we wanted to get Gail started early because, these kind of real.
Oh, your mic is...
Oh,
We can't hear you.
There we go. We wanted to get Gail started early because these kind of illustrations, don't happen overnight. I've got a really good picture of her, in her family room, with her different scissors and cutting, and it's a long process. And then, but we would, between Sherry, myself, and Gail, we would, just decide for the bias book, what picture would best complement this concept in the book. And then, Gail, would come up with some initial ideas. We would kind of basically, barter with each other back and forth to the point where we said,
Yeah, we didn't always agree.
Yeah. No, we didn't always agree. We all had our own biases. But no, seriously, but Gail had really ultimately the final say, and then it was like magic. Every one of the illustrations that came through was absolutely like magic, and especially the one we haven't really talked about that I absolutely love as well is the Civil Discourse biker. If you take a look at that, I believe that's the beginning of chapter.
Yeah.
Oh, is that Grandpa on his way?
Yeah, I saw that one.
But it was the Civil Discourse
No way.
one, which was to me the biker who was expressing.
And I have to just say that he has a name. He's Biker Bill, and he's named after my dad. Not that my dad looks anything like
Biker
this.
Bill.
I don't know if you can see it from mine, but my dad doesn't look anything like that.
Real
but
hair.
my dad, but my dad is Bill, and he had a motorcycle later on in his life, so I had to name it after my dad. But yeah, I think we all ended up really liking him because I tried to come up with an image of like your typical somebody that if you just looked at it, a lot of people might make some assumptions right away that this is a tough guy, that he may not be educated, or he hangs out in the so yeah, I just make assumptions about, but that isn't like that. That we don't know about him. Hello.
You're about to.
I see the
you're about
bird.
to have the best 7 minutes of your life right now.
Then it was worth the effort.
Grandpa,
Nice
meet
to meet
Erik
you.
and Gail.
Nice to... Hey, Grandpa, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Eric.
Yep.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I'm just running in and forgot that I have to put
Put your mic up, Grandpa.
Grandpa, is your mic working?
I hope so.
There it is.
Yeah, there. Yeah.
Yep.
We're talking about bias, Grandpa.
You mean like on a machine that makes records or whatever? Recorder?
Not like bias, like I don't know. We just talked about that.
What's your question?
Eric, what's bias? You have a quick,
So bias, is anything in, as far as information goes, okay? Different opinions of, various information, anything that you find anywhere on television, in radio, on the internet, everything contains a bias. And, I think it starts from the time we're born, and it's shaped through our experiences, and it's how we feel and think about things. And so I wrote this book called Biases All Around You, a handbook for inspecting social media news stories. And we have our illustrator here, Gail Gorske. Our editor, Sherry Wexler, was not able to make it. And it's a 57-page concise book to teach people to inspect information before they follow it, before they subscribe to it. And it's that's what it's all about. And we hope that Grandpa will approve.
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, one man's bias is another man's truth. But yes, I totally agree with you. Yeah. I think everything
that's it.
In the news today is biased. Absolutely.
Yeah, Grandpa very frequently on the episodes recently talks about how just the division and the news pulling people apart, all that kind of stuff.
So true.
No, that's it. Well, that's because 90% of the information we get is controlled by 6 entities across the country. And, and like, Brandon has pointed out is, it's everywhere. You can't escape it. Yeah. Uh-oh.
What happened?
He had to go.
That was, whoop.
All right.
Oh no, the other
Oh
bird's got
no,
it.
who let the other one in there?
Uh-oh. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Does he have two?
The bird that's in there lives in that room all by itself, and then there's 3 other birds that try and kill that bird. So
Oh no.
that was a big.
Uh-oh.
Grandpa, turn your gain all the way up. Your volume's very low.
I thought that my wife had put the birds into the cage. She didn't. They flew into the other bird's room and they would kill each other. So I wasn't expecting that. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Uh-oh. Those birds must be biased.
Yeah,
I think they are. They like some of the birds, but not other ones. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Eric, how do you feel, who's more biased, the Fox News or NBC?
Well, it's gone back and forth a little bit over the years. There was certainly a time, when I think both networks were a little bit more along the center, and then, they might have swayed from here and there. But, I think a lot of it depends on doing our research, and understanding where the ratings come from, right? And who is their market? Who are they pitching their news to? I think all networks are capable of serving up good news, but I also think that all of them are also capable of serving up news that might have some bias in it. But it depends. I think every journalist, it's I like to really think of it as what goes on in a classroom. Everything that goes on in a classroom is dependent on the teacher, right? The teacher. And, it's not necessarily just the news networks. It's the individual journalists who are doing their reports, they need to stand behind what they do. Certainly, Fox has some very sensationalized talk shows. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. They're really sensationalized. But all of them have shows that are designed, for ratings. It's just like in the old days. They would run the stories that they think people would read the most on the cover of the newspaper. So there's something in journalism called prominence, and things that are more towards the front of the newspaper and on the top of the fold, they get noticed more. So in television, it's it's the same thing as far as prominence goes. Is when can we hit the most amount of people? Is it the morning? Is it the afternoon? When do we want to align our talk shows for that? And who's the target audience? If we know that certain people will bring in more money, well, we're going to appeal to that audience, right? But there is a point where we need to all seek what I like to call liberal journalism. But that word has been tainted by the right to mean somebody who's liberal. But if you look up the definition of liberal means to get at the truth. That's what the definition means. So it's been tainted recently. But we need to get our news from a variety of different sources and never rely on just one source, I believe, because then you are confirming your own biases in that respect. So, and then our book, Grandpa, talks about what are called outliers, where we need to go and get other information that aren't part of the news. Go and get the meeting minutes at the local municipality, the local village. Find out who said what and under what pretext, right? Get the news from those sources, not just the filtered news too. That's another thing that we like to remind people about.
I can remember.
I hope that answers your question.
I can remember back in grade school, they gave us information to try to determine what was truth and what wasn't truth in things like the magazines and whatever way back then.
Yeah. Well, but back then, whenever that was, there was something called truth in advertising. If you go back to the 1930s and 40s, or 50s, they were saying that tobacco was good for you, and when we talk about just products, right? The baseball players would say this is the best tobacco, and and doctors recommend it, so, but we're smarter than that today, but yet what's happening is that people are being bought off and concepts are being sold. And just like I said, to the chill people of the interview here, what's really disturbing to me is all of these gambling apps on the smartphones and all the ads on TV. And, that's become a phenomenon during the pandemic. Where's the regulations? Where's the controls? That's new technology. You can now gamble over on your telephone. But where are the controls? So getting back to bias, getting back to news, we need to remind people to be in control, right? To be parsnickety. I like that word, about where you get your information. And don't just rely on your inner circle, right? And we have to question our inner circle, because our inner circle, a lot of times, sometimes we don't do it because of affinity bias, right? We want to feel like we're part of it. We jump on the bandwagon fallacy. And so, like I was saying earlier, we can't just all jump off the Brooklyn Bridge because people tell us to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. So, unless you got a bungee cord, I guess, right? But, it's about we need to. I think what's happening with the social media is we get caught in the trap. All the eye candy, the sensationalism, and I think we value the people more than the information, right? Because we want to be accepted by those people. We want to be accepted by that social media influencer. But our young folks are very, very impressionable. That's what we were talking about earlier. And so we're offering here in the Detroit area at local libraries some workshops to help young people, teens who are developing their personalities understand. Don't be just drinking from all the social media. Don't, understand that people are out to make a little bit of money, and you could be a victim.
The problem that I see with the liberal point of view, which I am liberal, is that they haven't shown me that they're able to get the people, that they are able to get the people. There's always people that, maybe are more intellectual or whatever you want to call it, but the people that, the masses, they're not really getting to the masses. They have great arguments and all this and that, but it's not really affecting.
I can't hear you, Grandpa.
Grandpa, can you turn your gain up or something?
Yeah, no. So Grandpa was saying they're not effective. They're not getting to the masses, and I agree to a certain aspect, because we need to do more town halls. We need to get people understanding what the issues are, and understand that every side can taint the issue. So we need to try to get through with the semantic noise. That's what the book talks about too. Semantic noise.
Yeah. I completely
all the things
agree
that get in the way.
Yeah. It's basically, I think everybody has kind of become very lazy, and they feel like they have their constituents, they have their listeners, and they're just going to always have them, and so they kind of rest on that. And yeah, I agree that there doesn't seem to be like a drive to keep their their followers.
I know we are a little over. I don't want to take too much of your time. Grandpa, it's been a great 4 minutes.
I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But we always do last thoughts on this show, so I'll just love to go around and get each individual person's last thoughts, and then that'll be our show. Sierra.
You guys have provided such a great tool for people to use. I'll definitely be sharing this around to people I know that I wish would just calm it down a little bit and just evaluate, some of the information they're getting. And everybody that I do agree with, I'll share it with everybody because, like we said, you never know when your own biases will come out. And, being able to evaluate that and think differently about things is just invaluable right now. So thank you guys so much for coming, and Gail, I can't wait to see more of your artwork in the future.
Thank you.
Gail, your final thought.
Well, just thank you for having us on, and as somebody who sometimes, especially in the evening, I would like to just sit and veg out in front of the TV. I think that this provided exactly what I was saying that we need once in a while. What I would prescribe is just to get out, talk to a bunch of people, maybe people that you don't even know that well, just hear what everybody has to say, because it can only add to our interests, our kind of like well-being and our well-roundedness. So thank you.
I'm actually gonna piggyback off of Gail, because I feel the same. Sometimes this is exactly the thing that we were just talking about to do, is just to have a round table to be able to talk and communicate with different people's they all have different biases, but it's so easy to go into a rabbit hole with the people that you know. And so it's really nice I'm just thankful thank you, Erik, and thank you again, Brandon, for even having this as a situation for us to be able to do it, because this is what we want to do to help with biases. So I'm just happy that I get to be a part of it. So cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Grandpa.
Who, me? Sorry,
You know
I came
where
in
you
so
are.
late. Didn't get to get to know you better and hear more from you. But the little bit I did here, I enjoyed.
And Erik.
Well, seriously, thank you very, very much. This is
the microphone.
I'm very grateful.
Your mic.
Your mic.
Gail and I. Oh, here I am.
There we
Very
go.
grateful to be on the show, and really take some more time on this. With this time that we had, to be a little bit more in depth, and ask that everybody take a step back, take a deep breath before you share that next piece of information, and understand how it can affect you, and how it can affect the people around you, don't be so hasty. Do a little bit of detective work, do a little bit of inspecting. That's where Gail came up with the magnifying glass, and do some due diligence out there, and use information with prudence and goodwill, and let's help each other understand the facts, right, and separate the facts from all the fiction. That's my message out there. And visit our website, biashandbook.com, and see what makes our book so unique.
We'll also have this in the show notes, but if you could just both say where everybody can find you, anything you want to promote. Obviously, Bias is all around you, the book available everywhere, etc.
Yeah. Well, that's it. It's go ahead, Gail.
Oh no, I was going to say that's perfect. Erik can say where to find it, and hopefully we'll have more books in the future and more endeavors.
We're looking forward to it. But you can get the book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You could ask your local library to order it, a hardcover book. They can get it through Baker and Taylor. You can also get an Audible version of it for as little as $6, but we hope that you'll get the print version or the electronic version to see Gail's amazing illustrations. And it's all part of our nonprofit, the Erik Bean Mental Wellness Foundation. And this is the Healthy Mind Express book imprint. And thank you and your audience for taking the time to listen to us. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Erik. Thank you so much, Gail. I really love having both of you. The illustrations are beautiful, and I think the book's very important. Thank you. I'm very grateful to Phines and Sierra and 10 Minutes of Grandpa. It was amazing. I love you, Grandpa.
More about those birds.
Yes, absolutely.
Love you, Brandon.
If you enjoy our show, the last guest told us to say this, but please just tell a friend, spread the word. Share it around. We're very grateful for all of our listeners, literally around the world. It's super cool. So thank you so much. Anything else? We're good. We're out.
That's good.
Good.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Podcasting with Grandpa Bart and Rosie, always on his shoulder. This is Grandpa and Chill.
Grandpa and Chill is brought to you by your hosts, Brandon Fox, Bart Frank, and Phines Jackson. Our producer is Sierra Doss. To watch and listen to full episodes of the show and follow us on social media, visit grandpaandchill.com. That's grandpaandchill.com.